So I really debated whether I should even make this video, both because I don't want to be alarmist and, to be quite honest with you, because I'm a white woman and I didn't want to come across as talking about something that it very much is not my place. But honestly, I'm worried enough that my moral obligation to share what I know and my own experiences, I think, outweighed the fear. So I'll start by saying this. If I were someone who had a last name that I knew white racists would interpret as being Hispanic or Latino in any way, I would seriously consider temporarily changing my name and doing so as soon as possible. And the reason that I say this is because reading the news this morning, there were more stories about Elon Musk loyalists forcibly taking over the databases, gaining access to databases that they have no right to gain access to, and that they have no non-nefarious reason to gain access to. And I have seen firsthand what it looks like when racists are given access to bureaucratic database systems and find a way to enact racism in the name of bureaucratic process. When I was working for Oklahoma Medicaid, I ran the digital comms program. I never, ever, ever had access to any of the patient databases. There was no reason for me to. But one day near the end of my time at the agency, I ended up in a group conversation that included one of the supervisors of the customer service part of the agency. So the people that did have access to all of the individual records of the 1.5 million Oklahomans who were on Medicaid, because they were the people that when someone called the 1-800 number and needed help figuring out a claim, this was who they would connect with. So I ended up in a group conversation that included one of the managers of that department. And I wasn't even really a participant in the conversation. I didn't know the people well, so I just kind of was quiet. And this woman went on to laughingly talk about how they had been instructed to pull a certain number of records randomly for an audit, which happens, I guess, regularly. They go through a certain percentage of the records to confirm, does this person still qualify to be on Medicaid? It's supposed to be entirely random. And this woman laughed as she shared how, rather than pull records randomly, she went through and pulled the records of anyone who had a Hispanic or Latino sounding last name. Obviously, I was not okay with that. It's like, what the fuck? I immediately reported what I had heard to someone above me, and I have no idea what happened after that. This was in my final weeks of not only working at the agency, but was also the final weeks of me even living in Oklahoma before I was moving to Chicago to take a job there. So I have no idea what ended up happening after that. I do feel confident that the leadership at Oklahoma Medicaid took care of it, because they were genuinely very good people. And I don't think that woman was still working there long after that. So who knows if it was related or not. But all that to say, I thought about that woman when I read this morning's stories about Elon Musk loyalists gaining access to these databases. And again, I don't want to be alarmist, but I also don't want to not warn people and then be reading about the Trump administration going through a list to pull all of the Hispanic sounding last names in 6 months. So what you do with this information is totally up to you. But I can say that were I in that position of being worried that my last name might be a red flag for the bigots in charge right now, I would seriously consider temporarily changing that name for all of my legal paperwork until I could change it back in 4 years.